Hey guys, over the years we've given lots of examples, lots of illustrations of the advantages that Japanese society has because of the fact that most people in Japan conform, and that most people in Japan's aim is for harmony and for getting along with everyone else and going along with everybody else and not rocking the boat. And there's lots of examples of how that can result in lots of good outcomes. So for example, the low crime rate and the harmony, it's very harmonious living here. There's very little confrontation, very little dramas, very little negativity. So a lot of the reasons that some people really like living in Japan is because of those things and other things that have resulted from that. And we're always giving you guys examples of that. You see lots of examples over the years of the good things that come from that. Last year when COVID first started, and we were seeing it just going crazy in lots of countries around the world, we made a video at the time saying of anywhere in the world that we wanted to be at the moment, Japan would be the place, because when COVID first started happening, Japanese government said, okay, we've got this disease happening, we need everybody to wear masks and wash your hands and maintain social distance and all that stuff. And the Japanese people went, hi, and all did it. So what we saw at first was in some parts of the world, the cases were just going berserk, it was just going crazy. But in Japan, the spread was pretty slow at first, and there wasn't many people getting it, and it was sort of all under control. And it was pretty good, and that was obviously a result of the fact, and that's what we mentioned in the video at the time, of the fact that the Japanese government said, please do this. There was no rules or laws or anything. They just said, please wear a mask, please wash your hands, please, avoid being around too many other people. And everybody just went, hi, and did it, and the result was very positive, was very good. So that was great, that was wonderful, right? But as with all things like this, there's always an upside and a downside, isn't there? And what we've been seeing recently is Japan has one of the lowest or the slowest incidence of vaccination at the moment. We're seeing the USA has more than 50% of the people vaccinated, almost 70% or something, isn't it? Lots of other countries are the same. They've got more than half their people vaccinated already, or all of their people vaccinated, and lots of countries have really got it under control. And Japan's just failing at it, absolutely failing at it. They've been saying, I think they first said last year that we'd have the vaccines and they'd start distributing the vaccines by January this year, by January 2021. And of course that didn't happen. And then they said February, and then they said March, then they said April, and then now it's April. They said then they said May. That's right. And then they said now they've told us maybe by the end of May they'll start giving it to older people. They've already started giving it to the healthcare workers. But there was stories in the press this week about how it's been very difficult for them to distribute it to the healthcare workers because there's over 1 million of them, as if that's some big difficult thing. Where we've got 127 million people here, and they're saying that getting it out to the healthcare workers has been difficult. That's only because it's 1 million people. That's less than 1% of the population, and they're struggling with it. It's just, and that nobody's talking about it. This is the amazing thing. Nobody's complaining about it. We've got this constant wave, this constant roller coaster of state of emergency. So we've had another state of emergency declared a couple of weeks ago. We made a video about it. And now as of Monday, they waited till Golden Week was over. So we just had a week of holidays. And during the holidays, everybody was hanging out with everybody. The parks were full of people, the restaurants were full of people, everybody was hanging out with everybody else. And they didn't declare a state of emergency then, or extend the state of emergency then. They waited until Golden Week was finished. And so in the middle of the holiday, they said, we're going to have a state of emergency extended to Aichi and some other prefectures starting Sunday, which is at the end of the holiday. So let's wait till everybody's been visiting their friends and traveling around and doing all their stuff, and then when they finish doing all that and they're home again, then we'll extend the state of emergency to more prefectures, right? Which is just, it's just so illogical and so irrational. And this is all we're hearing is this constant conversation about state of emergency and then all these other stopgap measures. We were talking the other day in that last video about it. It's like they're putting out spot fires with a little watering can while there's a big bushfire raging in front of us, you know, and they're walking around with a little watering can, putting it on these little fires while there's a huge fire raging towards us. And that's what it feels like. All these petty, pathetic little things that they're doing, you know, asking restaurants and bars. Now they're asking restaurants and bars to close. So what we're seeing is a lot of those businesses that we talked to you guys about on the English Family Directory they're forced to close. They're just not allowed to open, or not. They're allowed to, but they've been asked not to open. So they're just closing and all these little stopgap measures. Which, okay, that's all fine. You know, anything that is going to help prevent the spread of the thing is fantastic. But it's irrelevant, isn't it? When the only solution, and we know every time we make these videos, there's a whole bunch of people who are against vaccines and they have all their own thoughts on all this. That's fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. As far as the vaccine's concerned, we think that people should have a choice whether to take it or not. So we've been avoiding talking about this with the people around us in Japan because it's just better not to, because the thinking is so different. But this week we happen to be with a couple of people who sort of professional people who spend a lot of time talking with foreigners and sort of got a bit more of an international perspective on things. And so I thought it was fairly safe. Said, have you heard anyone? So I asked these two guys, have you heard anybody talking about or complaining about how slow it's been to get the vaccine out? And one of them said, no, I haven't heard a thing. And the other one said, I heard a commentator say recently he thought it was too slow, right? But other than that, the media and everybody they just accept it. They just accept it and they make excuses. They make excuses. That's the classic thing, and that's what this guy did next. Of these two guys, one of them said, I heard a commentator complaining it was too slow. And then he proceeded to give all the excuses as to why. And that's the classic Japanese response. If something's bad, you know, like in another country outside Japan, if something was bad, people would be shaking the tree, wouldn't they? You know, the media would be saying, what's going on? Why is it that all these other countries have got their vaccines rolled out and we haven't? Now, just start to touch on this, just make it clear. In our family, we've talked about this a lot, and we came to we agree that we think vaccinating should be an option, that it should be a choice for people, that if you don't want to take it, you shouldn't be forced to, right? And totally agree. As far as we're concerned, we're really keen to take it as soon as possible because we see it as being the solution to this bullshit, you know, that getting a vaccine puts it behind you pretty much, you know. So we're really keen for it, but we also believe that if other people don't want to take it, that should be their choice. But at the moment, we don't have a damn choice because we can't get it. It doesn't matter how much you want it, you can't get it at the moment in Japan. And no one's complaining about it. The media isn't complaining, nobody's complaining. Everybody's just accepting it, you know. And this guy was a classic example. He rolled out all the excuses. You know, they're just being careful. And the problem is too that the information that people get in Japan, most of them, it's only coming from Japanese sources. So they're getting their information from Japanese TV and Japanese news, and it's only coming from inside Japan. So you get a lot of this sort of myths and other bullshit that circulate in Japan, and most people in Japan aren't getting any information from outside Japan. And even if they do, it's filtered through Japanese people, right? Because usually they're not getting it directly in English. They're getting it in Japanese, which means it's been filtered through another Japanese person, right? And so this guy's saying, they just have to be careful. They have to be careful because there's been a lot of cases of people dying because of the vaccine, right? And I said to him, but you do know that like 2% of people dying from the virus, right? And but the Japanese government are being careful because they're worried that some people might die from the vaccine, so they're being really careful and they're worrying about it. And it's, in the meantime, how many people are dying in Japan every day from the virus, you know? But there's just no, and this is why it's better if you're in Japan or you're in Japan in the future and there's some other controversial topic, it's better not to discuss it. I mean, it's probably better not to discuss it in any country because you always get these extreme views. You know, we get it every time we make this video. There's some people that think that, it's just like the flu. Only 2% of people die, you know, it's not a big thing. This guy actually said that today too, the Japanese guy. You know, only 2% of the people die. I said, only 2%? That's more than 2 million people in Japan. Only 2% die, you know. And there's a lot of people that repeat that around the world, aren't there? You know, only 2% die. It's not so deadly. It's only 2%. It's only so many billion people in the world are going to die from it. So you get that, and then, oh yeah, the government's got to be really careful. You know, the government's got to be really careful to make sure that, you know, that people don't die from the vaccine. It's like, well, how many people have died from the vaccine? You know, according to the medical stuff I've seen, is that nobody's died directly from it. There's been some people who died from side effects, but it's not 2%, is it? It's not 2%, you know. But it's frustrating because no one's complaining. I haven't seen anybody complaining or seen on the news or anything because people in Japan don't like that. They don't like people shaking the tree. You know, they don't like, they say shogunai. When there's bad stuff happening, shogunai. You know, and they're just in this constant cycle of this emergency state of panic. Let's declare a state of panic and everybody stay home, and then, okay, it's okay now, everybody go out again. And what we're going to see over the next week is, because of Golden Week, because everybody just had a week's holiday and just spent time hanging out with other people, over the next week we're going to see huge numbers of people infected, and they're going to go, the state of panic will be declared again, and they're going to be locking everything. Well, they don't do lockdowns, but they'll be asking everybody to stay home, and there'll be a big... And then you hear it every day. You hear it every day, the people, oh, you know, there's been a lot of new cases in this area, and there's been a lot of new cases, you know, there's a record number of cases, and be careful. I had a guy the other day greet me with that. You know, I hadn't seen him for a couple of days. When I saw him, he said to me, oh, take care. First thing he said to me, "Kiyotsukete ne, kiyotsukete ne." Is a COVID is everywhere, and didn't even say hello. It was just straight into this, oh, look out, look out. So they're all saying that, and they're all talking about that, but nobody's saying, well, what's the solution? What's the solution? Let's get the vaccine. Nobody's even talking about the vaccine. Rarely. I mean, now and again you get it mentioned on TV when these politicians and other clowns are saying, oh, you know, we should be starting to get it out this month, or next month, or the month after next month, or whatever. You know, and nobody is saying, why is it that, you know, Japan's got an excellent healthcare system that we've always raved about how good it is, but, you know, we're one of the slowest countries to get the vaccine rolled out. It's just so frustrating. These are the sort of things, we've given examples of this before. You know, there's lots of positive examples to everybody not shaking the tree and not complaining and so on. But over the years, you know, there's been different topics that we've talked to you guys about with things like this that are just stupid things. You know, there's only as far as it seems, as far as the medical people are concerned, there's only one solution to this, and that's vaccination. That these other things, you know, the masks and the washing your hands, this guy said today, he's going through all the excuses that, oh, Japanese government's being careful, and if everybody's careful. I said, everyone's being careful, and we're still getting thousands of new cases a day, but his thinking was, oh, if you're careful, you know, if you're careful and you wear your mask and you wash your hands, that you'll be okay. And I said to him, but you're not, are you? That, you know, that's not working. It's not enough, is it? It's not the solution. The only solution seems to be vaccination, but they're not pushing it. Nobody's pushing it. Nobody's saying, why is it so slow? What's going on? No one's interviewing. I mean, that's the advantage. You know, it's good to live in a society that's not aggressive and not confrontational. But that's one advantage of the Western media. If this was a Western country, you know, there'd be reporters would be sticking microphones in the Prime Minister's face and saying, why is it being so slow for vaccinations to come out? Why is it being so slow? And people would be saying, you know, that, you know, every month that you faff around with your meetings and your talking and your BS, that so many hundred other people die, so many more people die. And they'd be really putting it in their face, wouldn't they? And putting it back on them, because it's their fault. You know, there's this other thing we got talking to these two guys today, was this real shogunai thing about, you know, oh, well, you know, it's a virus, it happens, and, you know, people are dying, like shogunai. And that's the Japanese, they've sort of got this fatalistic type attitude about stuff like that. That it's just, oh well, you know, it happens. And it's like, I said, well, it doesn't have to happen though, does it? If they get everybody vaccinated, and I said, look at some, the thing is they don't see, you don't get on the news here, they say, hey look, here's a country where, like New Zealand or Australia or even the US, look at the US, they've managed to do half the population of the US is much more than the whole population of Japan, you know? And they've managed to do that, and nobody's on TV saying, look, the US has done it, you know, Australia's doing well, New Zealand's done really well, there's all these countries that are doing really, really well, and Japan's right behind all of them, failing badly. Why is that? And asking the questions and demanding answers. Nobody's doing it. Nobody's doing it, you know. So, you know, quite often over the years we've talked about this sort of stuff, and it can be really frustrating. And this sort of stuff is the reason why a lot of foreigners, you know, spend a bit of time in Japan and then go back to their own country, because this stuff drives them crazy. And it's not just seeing this happen, it's being surrounded by people who accept it without question, you know. And that's one of the most frustrating things is those two people I talked to about this week, except for my family members, we talked about it amongst ourselves, but except for our family members, I haven't talked about it to anyone else, because it's a bad idea, because they see it that you're complaining, you're rocking the boat, you know, and they don't like it. It makes them uncomfortable. They don't want to hear it. So I haven't talked to anyone about it. I've been really careful. But you do hear, you know, it's the attitude. It's the attitude, this shogunai attitude. If shogunai is, it can't be helped. It can't be helped. They say it all the time, shogunai, shogunai. And that's what drives you nuts. It's not just the stupid decisions being made by the old men that run the place, but it's the fact that everybody around you is just accepting it. Even our family members, even the close family members I've talked to about it, they accept it. They just accept it. Oh well, you know, shogunai, and they accept it too. The close family members understand my frustration, you know, but they just don't. Japanese people don't sort of get frustrated about stuff like this. They just accept it's the way it is, which is sort of healthy for them, I guess. But this is why bad stuff doesn't change. This is why when bad stuff happens in Japan like that, it really happens, because nobody's shaking the tree. Who knows when they'll finally get it? Keeping in mind too, we're supposed to be having an Olympics in 2 months. They reckon we're not even going to have enough vaccine for everybody till September, and they've got the Olympics starting in July, right? And going to August, they reckon. What do you think's going to happen after the Olympics, if it happens? You know? So it's just insane. It's just really, really frustrating. So yeah, it's sort of, this video was a bit of a rant, but I mean, it's really important to know this stuff, because it does your head in. And being surrounded by everybody who just accepts it. You know those movies, those sort of science fiction movies or crime thrillers or things like that, where one person knows the truth and they're trying to get other people to listen and nobody will listen? You know, those sort of frustrating movies? You know, that's a popular genre of movie, isn't it? Only one guy really knows what's going on, he's trying to tell everybody and nobody's listening. And you get that feeling here, you know, when you're a non-Japanese person living here, you really get that feeling here that often is that you're really isolated, you're the only person who thinks like you do, and you can't talk about it out loud because they'll think you've got a problem. You know, why is he complaining? You know, complaining won't make a difference. And of course it's right, because only one foreign dude complaining about any bad shit isn't going to change anything, is it? You know, and I mean, this goes, can't think of any other. This is the most extreme example we've had of this, because people are dying from it. But over the years, we've given you lots of examples of it, haven't we? Bad stuff that just doesn't change because everybody just accepts it. Shogunai, you know. And it drives you nuts. Drives you nuts. Here's a warning, you know. Some people watch videos like this and say, oh, I don't think I could live with that. And that always makes these videos worth making, because, you know, if somebody knows about this stuff before they try and come and live here, it's better you know. It's better you know that this stuff exists before you come and live here, rather than come here and then after a year, you know, you've got yourself an apartment and you've got yourself a car, and then you go, oh, I can't live with this, you know. I can't live with this craziness and want to leave. It's better to know before you come that if you're going to live here. And look, obviously, when you weigh it all up, you know, obviously people like me come to the conclusion after weighing it all up that it's still worth being here. you know, the disadvantages like this are outweighed by advantages. But it's just so frustrating. It's just so frustrating watching. And I mean, you know, I'm young and healthy enough that I don't have to worry about dying of COVID, and the people in my direct family are young and healthy enough that we don't have to worry about them dying of COVID either. But watching other human beings dying unnecessarily is really frustrating. You know, the older people that, you know, the over 70s and over 80s that are dying because of this unnecessarily. And everybody's just going, ah. That guy today actually said, you know, it's only 2%. And I said to him, that's 2 million Japanese people. Oh, yeah, but Shogunai, he said. Shogunai. I said, and you know, I shouldn't have said this, but I said to him, so if you get a phone call tomorrow to say that your parents have died, because his parents would be about in their 70s. So if you get a phone call tomorrow to say that your parents have died of COVID, you're just going to say Shogunai, are you? You shouldn't have said that. But that's the point, isn't it? It's all very well to go, oh yeah, it's only 2% of the population, but it depends on that 2%. If that 2% is you, or someone that you really care about, you know, maybe then you'll have a bit of compassion. But as far as I'm concerned, all these things, it's the same as the kids driving around, you know, there's the other example that just came to mind. You know, cars driving around with kids standing on the front seat with their face against the window, or, you know, people driving along using their smartphone while they're driving the car. That's that same frustration that people are going to die because of this bullshit, and nobody's saying anything about it. It's that same frustration, and nobody really cares while it's not them dying, you know. But some of us do, and no doubt some of you guys do, will feel this frustration as well, that if, you know, people are dying unnecessarily, whether we know them or not, it's a bad thing, you know. So videos like this are really, really unpopular, I know that, but we always say that we'll make videos about anything and everything that we see in Japan. So if it's an interesting vending machine, or it's some wonderful thing about Japan. I mean, if you look at our 3,000 videos, you know, probably the majority are really positive and look at this wonderful thing, aren't they, you know? But we tell you, we'll show you everything and anything, and at the moment, it's hard not to talk about this topic, because it's the most extreme thing that's happening here in Japan at the moment. And it's going to be a topic around the world because Olympics is coming. And surely they're going to mention that when we get to July and only, you know, 2% of Japan's been vaccinated. Surely they're going to talk about that. That, you know, we're about to go to Japan, only 2% of people have been vaccinated there. And out of the people that are coming here from around the world, how many of them have been vaccinated? And, you know, and all these different strains that are developing and so on at the moment. So anyway, there was that. More videos coming soon.